Okay, so let's start it. As I said, my name is Rotty, and I like fictional gay men. Yes, I like reading about them, watching them, playing as them in different games. Some of us have already met at the Ultimate BL quiz yesterday. Congratulations if you managed to get most of the points or questions right. Today, I'm here with a more literature, comic analysis of a specific theme prominent in some BL comics. Last year, I did something similar about the concept of mates in Omegaverse. If you're interested, you can check out the CitrusCon's YouTube channel. This year, I'm here with a topic which might be more realistic and at the same time more closer to our hearts. We'll delve into the captivating world of BL manga and actually manhwa too. Just BL comics, okay? And these stories explore whether emotions and consciousness can exist beyond biological life. The stories blend science fiction with emotional depth, challenging perceptions of love, autonomy, and humanity itself. Can programmed emotions ever be genuine? And what does it mean to love something that is not human? Together, we'll explore popular works, the themes they tackle, and how these stories shape discussions about technology, identity, and romance. So, I guess let's step into a future where the boundary between artificial and real is blurred. And yes, spoiler alert, there will be different comics and most of them will have spoilers. So if you see a work that you've never read before, maybe you should, you are listening, it is your decision if you want to know it or not. Now, technically speaking, there is a clear difference between an android and a human. Our focus will center on 4 key dimensions that shape the dynamics between human and artificial character. Level of dehumanization. How does society within the story treat the artificial being? Are they objectified, commodified, or denied freedom of choice? Second, level of autonomy. Does the artificial character operate independently, or are their choices shaped entirely by the program? We'll explore how growing autonomy emphasizes journey to selfhood, you could say. Third, programmed feelings. Are the android's emotions authentic, or are they simulations coded to satisfy human needs? We'll unpack how this tension raises questions about compassion, consent, and whether love can exist without true choice. And fourth, life circumstances of the human who fell in love. We'll try to check whether there is any pattern and if there is any type of character that has bigger tendency to emotionally rely on an artificial being. So all of these elements together will give us a bigger picture as to how authors of certain BL works imagine the possibilities technology may offer, but most of all, how they define humanity. And in this presentation, we will look into 4 specific kinds of artificial beings in order from the most to the least human. So we are not going to focus only on the comics which show robots, strictly speaking, but there will be clones, synthetic beings, dolls, and androids. Clones, which are made out of 100% human cells, synthetic beings, which are a mixture of human body and artificial elements, dolls, which technically speaking aren't simply made out of plastic, but within the works themselves they are called that way, and last but not least, the androids, where there is a clear difference between flesh and blood versus wires and circuits. So without further ado, let's jump into the examples. First of all, clones. And unfortunately, only one example. Replicant, the love of Dolly the sheep. Sheep, not ship. This title is dedicated to the topic of cloning. The political, sociological background constitutes as a good case study. Within this one short comic, we can see how science gains the ability to produce clones of humans. Pursuing the project is humanity's answer to the growing problem of a small population. However, what is important, at some point, the companies responsible for cloning decide to change the investment into organ harvesting. That's where our main character, the scientist behind the whole project, dedicates his life to changing people's views and making the world see clones as a second species of mankind. This title is a sort of imposter and at the same time not. We may analyze how people in general perceive clones, but because they are the most human example, it's difficult to analyze the emotional attachment aspect, since technically speaking they are made of flesh and bones. There is no problem for clones to have feelings, but there could be people who don't treat them as real. Our main character, though, wholeheartedly thinks of them as humans, which is why, when the man he fell in love with is supposed to get married, he decided to make a clone version of him and live together until their end. If you haven't read that comic, I recommend it very much. Next up, synthetic beings. And we'll start off here with a classic title from Ranmarizaria, Void. Here we have a case of a synthetic being, neither a robot nor a human. In this world, people make them with generally available data to create humanoid being to fulfill some roles within the society. Okay? One of those roles is being a toy, of course, supposed to relieve human sexual desire. Our main character, though, encounters a humanoid illegally altered with real human's DNA. Even though he does not want it at his house, his friend forces the humanoid upon him because it looks similar to his deceased lover, Ren. In this comic, we have a few themes woven together to project a kind of philosophical, although mostly emotional story. Loneliness, using others as substitute, as well as dehumanization by ownership. Maki is a very lonely man, okay, to say the least. He was used as a substitute for his brother by his former lover, Ren. Then he receives the android, the humanoid made out of Ren's DNA. He is kind of reserved at the beginning, but then feels this irresistible, warped need to take revenge on Ren for everything he had ever done, torturing the humanoid with sex for almost 2 weeks, using it as a replacement for Ren. But then there is a significant change within Maki's behavior. The more he spends time with the humanoid, the less it reminds him of Ren, becoming glad that it was actually completely different in character. He begins to see Arata is the name of this humanoid, he begins to see him as what he is, who he is. He takes his feelings into consideration a lot, saying sorry when he mentions something being programmed or when he asks about his past, knowing it was technically speaking all fabricated during his creation. So this moment is the most important part for us. In this comic, humanoids can function basically like human beings, with the exception of the so-called imprinting. If a humanoid imprints on a human, it becomes devoted to them. Arata has done the imprinting at the very beginning of the story. Maki is aware that in this relationship he might be the only one with real feelings, but that doesn't bother him, for the fear of losing love again is much stronger. He was the type to keep a precious bird in a cage, that is until Arata teaches him that a birdhouse is an answer too. The more Maki owned, quote unquote, the android, the more he had control over him, the less real Arata's feelings felt. Maki decided to annul the imprinting, and Arata promises his love will never fade, even after the process. They both meet after half a year, ready to nurture their new relationship until it blooms. Sabi no Yuma. The only one from the list which hasn't been licensed yet, and I don't know why. This one has a really difficult beginning to digest, you could say. Shindo is a researcher at his uncle's center. A researcher who is suddenly asked to check the condition of a newly developed sex machine. The synthetic being we have on the cover. However, our main character isn't interested in its abilities of doing filiato or shaking his hips for that matter. He prefers to avoid doing anything sexual with any product of the company. In fact, he wouldn't even do any checkup for this machine, but the task was forced upon him, just like any other task related to it. This synthetic being is called Toshio. He used to be a usual boy, but due to some circumstances, which I'm not going to elaborate on, he decided to give up his body for this research. In Sabi no Yuma, we deal with deliberate dehumanization. The company takes the boy, implements some changes to his appearance, such as small animal ears or artificial arm with a hoof instead of hand, but also tampers with his brain and level of intelligence, making him unable to speak like a normal person, but still fluently fulfill given orders. And they got rid of common sense, of shame, everything in order to make the clients forget it was originally a human being. Of course, that is not entirely everything. There have been anatomical changes as well, although not that well described. This is why I decided to categorize it as a synthetic being. Everyone in the manga treats him as an object, saying that he used to be a human, but not anymore. The autonomy here, okay? In Sabi no Yume, the autonomy plays the key role. It's not like they turn him into a cyborg which has to always listen to the commands, okay? He's just too stupid. He's too stupid and unaware to know what is happening to him is not right. Shindo teaches Toshio how to read, say basic words, and understand the basic sense of shame. Everything was done because the company wanted the machine to express more human feelings during sex, okay? However, Shindo personally seems to feel some kind of need/satisfaction that he can bring out the human side of the boy back to life. It's especially visible when he emphasizes that he will only do things Toshio agrees to. The more he takes his decisions into consideration, the bigger changes occur in Toshio's behavior. He has emotions, especially towards Shindo. He begins to take interest in everything related to the main character, basically. So, we have something that used to be human and stopped being one when science interfered. It was considered to be an object meant to fulfill sexual desires, but then, thanks to the brain, however funny it sounds, it was still able to learn the basics of being human, and thus, the mere autonomy turned into a free will. Next up, we have dolls. I can see that somebody in the chat sent a screenshot of having sex with cyborgs in 2025. We'll get back to this subject at the end of the presentation too. But yes, the next category of artificial beings are dolls. And this is probably the most famous example, probably also because it has an anime adaptation. If you haven't seen it, I totally recommend. Hybrid Child is a doll that will only become something more if you give it enough love. However weird it sounds. People who do not manage to nurture them properly throw them out to the trash. So even though a hybrid child can grow with you and behave like a human, people still perceive it as a mere object. Unless someone honestly loves it, there is no way for the doll to develop into something more, basically. And then there was Lover's Doll. A very special case, okay? A little bit similar and completely different at the same time. The doll can basically the doll can basically turn human thanks to the love from its owner, but it's more like magic of some sort. It has nothing to do with science, in my opinion. Maybe with Shintoism, okay, yes, but not with science. So, taking that into consideration, I thought that maybe we shouldn't even put that title on the list. But, okay, one thing stopped me from doing so. In Lover's Doll, we deal with a concept of soul, a very interesting addition to our list of things which may differentiate humans from artificial organisms. So, both of these examples are quite difficult to categorize. On one hand, the special beings were dolls, but on the other hand, they possessed a lot of human qualities. So, going back to the most important elements of the analysis. In both of these cases, we have an artificial object which can turn into an almost human being, all thanks to the owner's love. The dolls have a lot of autonomy. They are not programmed to behave in a certain way, but they do become emotionally dependent on their humans. Even though they are not supposed to feel any emotions whatsoever, it seems that the more they depend on the owner, the more something similar to feelings they feel. They are taught to experience them because of how important the owner is. This may put into question truthfulness of their affinity, but that's not important for the main characters. In both cases, we deal with people who are perfectly aware that their object of affection is not a human, but they don't care. Most likely because of how similar they are. It's worth to mention that all of the characters, apart from Boy from Lover's Doll, they are very lonely. Okay? It seems to me that all of them do not care about the possible inequality of feelings because of how much the dolls fulfill the gaping holes in their hearts. And the theory becomes especially convincing when we realize how hybrid children are designed to basically mirror their owner's emotional states and needs, which is a very important aspect when it comes to our analysis. And next up, androids. Actually, for this particular group, I had more examples which I considered talking about, but I wasn't sure if I managed to fit everything in time. So we will just look into 5 of them. But if you want some bigger recommendation list, we can share some later after the presentation. Although, honestly speaking, I hope that we'll finish before time to have time for some conversation. But we'll see. Chess and Jack. Has anyone read it? I think it's kind of niche title. But within this comic, we have presented a very far future with advanced technology that made it possible to build a dome city in space. Chess arrives in the city after learning that Esther, his rich sister, has died. But Chess finds out that his legacy was inherited by android Jack, who chooses him as his new owner. In Chess and Jack, androids are also known for following the protocol. They can never act against the will or well-being of the human. So they are also considered to be mere objects. When Chess is young and steals some parts of androids from different places, people around him always say that the best advantage of the job is lack of guilt, because they are all but machines. Nothing but machines anyway. However, Jack seems to have suspiciously too much autonomy. Jack is the android, of course. Due to his unnatural behavior, Chess starts suspecting he is responsible for his sister's death. And while fruitlessly, mind you, trying to find some reasons to accuse the android of murder, the two of them spend more time and slowly start to rely on each other. From hate to love, one could say. If a robot can hate or love, that is. Later, after an accident, Jack needs to be heavily repaired. Chess's friend, might come to the rescue, but he is not sure whether Jack should actually be turned back on. After all the abnormalities Jack showed, the friend wants to take only his head to examine it, especially since both of them still had their suspicions about Esther's death. The friend has an interesting theory though. Since androids only do what humans desire, maybe Jack didn't actually break any protocol, but only went around it, because Esther actually wanted to die. Which means that we deal here with some kind of free will available for Jack. All of these theories and suspicions, though, were not enough for Chess to get rid of his android. Because Jack was the only one left. He has already become his only family. Now, Master, please leave a mark. Yes. I know the cover may not seem convincing, or the cover may seem too slutty to be considered a comic worth of talking about, okay? But no, it turned out to be a very good example, hella convincing. I should check it out, actually. It turned out to be a very interesting story. So over here, in this world, people have already got used to androids in their daily life. A whole generation has been brought up with them, and now every household that can afford an android owns one. Our main character doesn't have the money for it, okay? He lives alone, working for the company responsible for making most of the androids as one of the engineers, while at the same time trying to pay off debts from his family's past. So, no time for entertainment, no time for life, no time for love, and no time for sex, of course. Then, as a present, one of his friends sends him an android that is supposed to fulfill that lack of love experience in his life. Generally speaking, okay, this comic has a lot of happy moments backed by drastic past, you could say. There is a lot of smut, yes, so if that piques your interest, go for it. I'm not going to delve into details regarding how, but their relationship quickly becomes that of two boyfriends. Hodgin knows the android was probably sent by accident and even considers selling it, but he begins to care about him too much to do so. At first, I wasn't interested in this title. Yes, okay, I admit. Okay, you can throw rocks. That is because of the cover, and that is because of how it's very colorful, and because of the smuttiness. You know, especially when the android wanted to enter the love mode and make a love mark with the main character, sort of like imprinting in Void, by the way. They all made me think this comic did not have much to offer, but the android itself was pretty mysterious, okay? He was slowly raising his own humanization level, starting to become more and more like a real boyfriend, and at the same time trying very hard to hide that something was wrong. And that made me stay. Later on, it turned out our android was created by the most interesting characters. A man who loved humans, and a woman who hated humans but loved androids. The very owners of the very same company our main character was working for. The backstory was perfect. They met at university, trying to develop androids and establishing the company together. They got married because even though they had different views, both of them understood each other's way of perceiving reality. They had a son who the woman raised with a lot of care and fear of all the human children around him. But thanks to both of them being amazing parents, he became a kind young man. The woman began to participate in a therapy, admitting to her family that her resentment towards humans might have been a little bit too much. But then, one day, there is an accident. Their son was hit by a car, drove by a drunk man, and ended up in a coma in a hospital. The woman desperately looked for a solution and ended up creating a new form of a robot by fusing some of human qualities, being, consciousness, with android body. The last step was to move her son's consciousness to the model. However, he died before it could happen, unfortunately. Devastated mother began to see that there was nothing wrong with her, that humans were indeed not worth living. She finished the android project, creating a being outside of the protocol, so she could take revenge on all of those people. But then her husband found out the truth. He secretly wiped the android's memory, made a second memory space within the android's heart, and sent it away, so it can try to live with a human to see how it is. And this is how the android ended up being in Hodgins' possession, the very same android we see on the cover. The android learns to love and care. The android sees how humans are and learns to understand them. So much so that when the woman finally gets him back and wipes his memories again, it's not enough. The second memory space saved in his heart wins, and the android came to love a human, just like his dad wanted him to. I did not expect such a story from this cover, okay? So I was pleasantly surprised. Next up, his romance of 500 years. Yes, I saw some people talking about it at a different... was it a fan meetup of robots or BL discussion? I don't remember anymore. But yes, his romance of 500 years is a classic. It's available on Renta. You can check it out too. Over here, we have a very sad story, unfortunately, too. Torao was in a relationship with Hikaru, a boy he'd been in love with before he even knew their feelings were mutual. Their families hated each other, but Hikaru was everything for him. So no wonder that when Hikaru died in an accident, Torao decided to commit suicide. And that's what he did. But why did he wake up again? And why is there someone who looks almost like his lost lover? Turns out that it's not 2010 anymore, but 2660. When Torao was rescued by the hospital, his parents decided to sign up comatose Torao for a special experiment that would allow him to wait until medicine would be developed enough to rescue him, and until technology makes it possible to recreate Hikaru. There have been wars. The concept of countries no longer exists. But more importantly, there was also a drastic drop of population, which the society decided to fill with androids. Hikaru B was created to become Torao's partner for life. I'm not going to spoil this, okay? It turns out that Hikaru B might not have been actually meant for Torao, but that's not important right now. Through a government program, Torao and Hikaru B are supposed to form a relationship. There is a very important rule to go by, though. In order to assimilate for perfect cohabitation, one must remember that androids are not real beings. Later on, you will see a picture of how this android looks under the skin. Torao constantly compares the android to Hikaru. It's inevitable, because they are very different from each other. Even though he was supposed to resemble the former lover, Hikaru B was far from it. At some point, the android became endearing to Torao, so much so he came to love him. Not for any resemblance to his previous lover, but for who Hikarubi was. When Torao risks his life for the android, he shares a very common yet incomprehensible for logical thinking truth. Humans are capable of love towards a dog, a goldfish, a stamp, or an android, and they can do anything for what they love. It's not like we aren't aware of them not being real or on the same level as humans, but that's just how our hearts work. The case of Hikarubi is also interesting. Even though he is an android, he seems to have grown attached to Torao. After saving Torao's life, when he is discarded by people who found them, Hikarubi goes to Oze, a place Torao promised to take him to. There, he just sits and waits, wishing he was human, because then he would have been able to hallucinate Torao's voice. Next example, the stranger in the mirror. This right here is an immensely interesting concept that I would say resonates with current experiments, plans people talk about in contemporary society perfectly. In this comic, people realize that the best kind of android is quantum, so basically like a core, can be built based on human brain data/sample. The most recent invention is the Android model we can see on the down right corner of the cover, XBT series Android. Available only for military use, I believe. It complies to people's needs and with people's orders perfectly, prioritizing their safety and never, ever, mind you, breaking the implemented protocol. Well, our main character, model XBT512087, yes, I wrote it down, called by people in his squad Xiao Hu. Okay, I'm not sure if it's the correct pronunciation. Sorry, I didn't study this language. This model slightly differs from the rest. Ever since he met his major, the character on the right-left corner, he starts to feel as if some information tried to kind of resurface from his data, though he does not realize from where and why. Only one name remains in his mind, Zi Gang. Again, sorry for pronunciation. At the same time, the relationship with Major develops. He starts to care about Major with the same intensity as a human would. The Major himself comes to like the android, and at some point finds solace within its care. Until he meets him, memories as well as guilt from an accident in the past haunt him daily. He has PTSD, which basically threats his whole military career. But then the android teaches him that it is perfectly okay to be alive. The more they spend time and try to lead the investigation regarding the suspicious name, the more human the android behaves. The Major himself stops seeing this XBT model as just an android. He says, "You are just you. You've never stopped fighting to be yourself. I wanted to help Xiaohu choose his own path." So regardless of his outside, he was always the one and only Xiaohu. And the XBT android replies with the words, "You instilled my being with a soul." When we finally learn the truth, it turns out that Hao Zigang, this weird name that our android suddenly thought of, used to be a soldier in the army, who was also known for having romance with someone contemporarily known as Major Ling. And that Major was his only light in the world. And that same Major mercilessly decided to use his devotion in order to rise higher in the ranks. How? By ordering to brutally kill him. So the army can receive a perfectly prepared brain for future development of the android. The whole XBT series came to be only because it received a brain filled to the brim with the strongest animal instinct burnt into the cells. Survival instinct. Yes, the will to live defied the laws of nature. And how was it possible for Xiaohu to enter this data and memories? Because the major he fell in love with was almost a carbon copy of the person Hao Zigang loved before he was murdered. Hao's traumatic death paved the way for creating the new kind, basically, by liberating the android's mind from the confines of the system. Now, it was neither a human nor a simple android. It started to have affection for Major, and at the same time began to feel survival instinct, becoming unable to sacrifice itself for humans. And the last example, Black Blood. Has anyone seen that cover before? Out of all of these examples, this is the only title where the appearance of a full-fledged robot is not the same as a human. Although, not really, because it does have a body build of one. It's just that the head is without face, and it makes it the least normal out of all. It does speak as well as humans, moves like a human, generally has a lot of autonomy. Technically speaking, it is the furthest from a human out of our examples, yet very close to being one at the same time. And obviously the whole concept is done on purpose. Just like in Void, the author wanted the readers to delve a little deeper into the philosophy behind freedom of feelings, or Stranger in the Mirror, the aspect of free will. Black Blood explores the idea of a soul, you could say. Because on the very first page, you see, it will depend on the translation. You'll see what I mean later. Because in Japanese manga, they use the kanji they use kanji kokoro, which could mean heart or soul, basically. The android meets a human whose gentlessness kind of sizzles the android's wires, if you know what I mean. But how it develops and what comes of that, I will not tell you, okay? Despite the spoiler alert at the beginning, I decided to make an exception for this title because, drumroll please, BAM! 7 Seas decided to publish it. And would you look at that? The release date is just around the corner. So yes, you could say I did this whole presentation to make you go buy this comic and think about the topic on your own. You're all part of a one long-ass advertisement. No, but seriously, it's worth checking out. I, for example, bought the Japanese copy on DL site, trying to read as much as I can in Japanese, but I am definitely going to order the English copy too. You're sold? I'm glad. That's what I was going for. So you can give us your opinion later, maybe on social media or some kind of other server. But yes, out of all these 5 examples, I think those 4 are most worthy of our attention, I would say. In Master, please give me a mark. Androids are meant to be tools for daily life. The more humanization level is raised, the more human-like the android behaves, and the main character starts developing feelings for it. He is very lonely and longs to love and be loved. But we can also, from the backstory of its creators, we can also see a very interesting aspect of, you could say, the fight between the heart and the brain within the android itself. Very interesting concept. The second picture is from his romance or his love of 500 years we've talked about. This is how the androids look under this skin. In this story, androids are meant to be tools for daily life. They even changed their form in the future. If you read the manga, you'll know what I mean. So they don't look like humans anymore. And the main character is also lonely. Shocker. He feels affection for the android that seems to be just himself and appreciates him for it. In the third example, It's kind of horrifying. That, of course, it is horrifying. That's just a robot. In the third example, we have the stranger in the mirror, right? An android that cannot deny the protocol forced upon him, but a human brain with strong will to live makes it possible, which helps the model to break out from the clutches of the system. The human has trauma, which is healed thanks to the android. And fourth example, Ethan from Black Blood, an android looking least human, but behaving like one the most, if I have to judge it myself. The android leaves battlefield in search for something. The android itself doesn't know what. And yet, when you read the story, it feels like this android is looking for the meaning of his life. So later on, it makes you wonder what exactly soul is. And just like we can see some common elements between those androids, we can also notice common circumstances within the humans who fell in love with those androids. In many boys' love comics featuring artificial beings, the human protagonists are often portrayed as emotionally scarred, grappling with loneliness, grief, or trauma that isolates them from others. These characters may have experienced abandonment, betrayal, or loss, leaving them wary of human connection. Their emotional wounds create a void that an android, uncomplicated, non-judgmental, and programmed to care being, can begin to fill. In some narratives, the androids start as a blank slate, you could say, a blank page, emotionless or purely functional, but gradually develops empathy and affection, which basically you could say this mirrors the protagonist's own journey. From numbness to emotional reawakening, the relationship becomes a sort of mutual transformation where both human and machine learn what it means to feel, care, and to love. Very beautiful. The appeal of an artificial companion in these stories lies in the emotional safety. Unlike humans, androids don't come with unpredictable emotions or with the risk of rejection. They listen, they stay, and they often evolve to understand the protagonist's pain. This dynamic allows the human character to slowly open up, rediscover trust, and begin healing. These stories don't just explore romance, they delve into what it means to be seen and accepted, even in one's most broken state. The android becomes more than a machine. It becomes a mirror and sometimes the first safe space the protagonist has ever known. Boys love comics featuring artificial beings they don't just tell stories of romance. They dive into deep cultural aspects, reflecting and reshaping how we think about identity, love, and the future of human connection. Uh, First of all, reflecting modern anxieties. These stories often mirror contemporary fears about isolation, emotional disconnection, and technological dependence. In a world where digital communication sometimes replaces physical intimacy, the idea of forming a bond with an artificial being resonates. Like, even now, people are emotionally dependent on ChatGPT because it answers their question, gives them advice, and they can talk to it and get some nice words back. So the human characters, often traumatized or emotionally distant, seek comfort in androids who offer predictability and unconditional presence. This dynamic reflects a broader societal unease that maybe we will be unable to connect with each other in the future. But BL manga uses this tension to explore how technology might both soothe and deepen our loneliness. Additionally, there is also often the question of ethics. Some stories explore the moral dilemmas of creating artificial beings, like with the example of Master, Please Give Me a Mark, or with A Stranger in the Mirror. Should we use humans also to develop the androids? Or if the android starts to have their own mind, should they have rights? Can we treat them as objects? Can they truly consent to relationships with them? Where should we place the boundary between our beings? These are all the questions present within the works. Second element is obviously queering the norm. BL has always been a space for queering traditional narratives, and the inclusion of artificial beings pushes this even further. These stories challenge the heteronormative and even homonormative ideas of what relationships should look like. Love between a human and an android defies anything: gender, species, even emotional and fantasy. And it asks, if love is real, does it matter who or what we love? In doing so, these works create space for fluidity, ambiguity, and acceptance. And third, last but not least, redefining love and humanity. At their core, these manga question the boundaries of humanity, the topic of our presentation. When an artificial being learns to feel, to care, to choose, are they still just machines? This is a very good question. And when a human finds solace and healing in that connection, is it any less valid than love between two people? These stories suggest that love is not defined by biology, but by empathy, presence, and mutual understanding. They invite readers to imagine a future where love is expansive, inclusive, and unbound by any convention. Which brings us to the last question of this presentation. What does it mean to be human? Generally speaking, a lot of things seem to define humanity as a whole. Our ability to hurt and to heal with time, our fantastic talent of adapting to even the most ridiculously difficult circumstances, our brain's capacity to remember the good things best, our illogical, contradictory emotions which even we don't understand, our strong survival instinct, which was even visible in one of the examples. But within analyzed works, we can see three prominent elements which the authors focus on. First, empathy. It is widely considered as a marker of humanity. According to our analyzed sources, it is less about biology and more about emotional depth, vulnerability, and the capacity to connect. It's because of this quality that some of us are able to love a mere goldfish, as it was said. The ability to understand and respond to another's pain is often what elevates an artificial being from a machine to something more. Second element would be free will. These stories often use androids or AI characters to explore what it means to choose, to act not because of programming, but because of desire, care, or love. Within the comic, we can observe that the more control our characters had over the artificial beings, the less human they felt to them. The ability to make decisions on its own, outside of any program or protocol, makes any artificial being transform into something more. We could see it in Void, we could see it in Sabi no Yuma, we could see it in The Stranger in the Mirror. Most of these examples, every example almost. And the third element would be the concept of a soul. Probably the most philosophical aspect of all. There are as many definitions of soul as there are people on the earth. Some also deny its existence. But within these comics, it regularly reappears as an additional question of whether artificial being can be compared to a human. Though maybe not necessarily in a religious terms, that's what we have to also emphasize. According to authors of comics, soul is undeniably a reflection of individuality and compassion, not necessarily some kind of divine spark, which means that an artificial being capable of such needs to have a meaning or to feel emotions, which don't seem to be a part of some program, begin to be seen in a different light. BL stories, to sum it up, with artificial beings often blur the line between human and the machine, suggesting that humanity is defined not by flesh and blood, but by the ability to feel, to choose, and grow. An android who learns to comfort, to protect, or even fall in love can be portrayed as even more human than the humans around them, ironically. Meanwhile, the human characters, often emotionally numb or traumatized, rediscover their own humanity through those relationships. They are a very inspiring source of not only entertainment, of course, but also of some philosophical thoughts. It's also interesting to notice, I'm not sure if it went through your mind, if you thought about it while watching the presentation, but there aren't really many, or if any, examples of machines which are not of humanoid build. That made me think that maybe even if a machine was having some empathy, it wouldn't be as attractive to write a comic about it. But I still have to check that theory. If you guys have some recommendations with relationships between artificial beings, especially androids and humans, I would be glad to receive some. I've seen many concepts with soul, for example. I've read the comic Soulless, where we have humans, but the humans can be without soul. The topic is very broad. I would love to explore it more. So if you have recommendations, I'm looking forward to it. If anyone here isn't a fan of science fiction, I highly recommend checking out the last few of similar titles. I'm sure you won't regret it. I also share with you the list of titles mentioned within the presentation along with their sources in the extra credit forum. But yes, for now, thank you for your attention. I hope you'll have a great time for the rest of the con.
Are we doing questions or is it just?
If you have questions or would like to point something out, we can do so. We have some time.
Yeah, we have 5 minutes, which is enough for a few questions if you want to.
So is there anything you'd like to ask or add? Can I ask for a rec list from you all? I guess, okay, wait, I can link the extra credit place.
Yeah, let me find it for you. I can link it.
Okay, thank you.
There we go. Click the link. There we go. Okay,
Yes, there's a space where you can, guys, write anything, continue the discussion, or send the recommendations. I will be putting a list of comics from this presentation, and outside of it too, honestly speaking. There was also Prince of Southland I considered talking about. And there was another one, webtoon, I believe, with a blonde-haired android. I don't remember the title. And there was also another one with an android that wanted to become a sex robot, but I had to choose some. So is there anything you guys would was the blonde-haired android a priest? I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm going to look for it and send it the extra credit, okay? Don't take my word for it being a priest or not. Have you seen Scavenger's Reign because they have philosophical look? No, I haven't. What is it exactly, Boy Kisser? Is it like a game or some kind of series?
Yeah, it should be a TV show.
It's a TV show. Where can I watch it then?
I'm gonna leave Boykisser to answer that because the show had licensing issues. I think it's on Netflix now.
Okay. Gosh, I don't have Netflix. But it's okay, I'll find it somehow. It's super gory. Okay, I'm sold. Okay, I'm sold. I know, guys, I know this presentation was more educational and very calm, but on the inside, I am, gore, cannibalism / incest kind of fan. So I'm open for that. Super cool
Also,
alien designs. Okay,
yeah. Also,
that those.
someone asked here. I
Mhm.
wonder what happens in these stories when robots have an infinite lifespan, but humans have a short, limited one.
Ah, that's a very interesting thought. Um, I seem to think of a couple of endings, although I cannot remember if they actually happened in the comics or if it's something I saw in a movie or some kind of series. But for example, in Lover's Doll, there was a very interesting ending because the doll was obviously not aging, opposite to the human caretaker. The doll stopped moving when the human died. It stopped existing suddenly. So that's how the author decided to finish this concept, I guess. But when it comes to Stranger in the Mirror, for example, we will never know because the story didn't show their future. When it comes to the first example of a clone, of which you can see the picture in the background, it's a different case because clones can age. And actually, should I spoil it for you or not? It isn't actually a clone, okay? So they are pretty normal. And I guess very often, if someone lives without dying and is an android, I can think of an end where the android decides to just shut it off or maybe to destroy itself because it doesn't want to exist. But honestly speaking, these are just things I saw somewhere else. They are not within BL manga because that manga focuses on romance mostly, so it doesn't show the end of the human life. Would a story where a human and their robot replica fall in love count as self-cessed? That's a valid question. Uh, oh my god, you've just reminded me, Burlap Box, about one anime on Disney. But it's not related to Android. It was an alien that changed its look into a sister of the main into a mother of the main character who was actually supposed to sleep for a century or even more for 1,000 years. And yes, there is incest there. I'm not going to go deeper into that, but I don't think it would have been self-cessed, honestly speaking, because if that robot looks exactly the same but behaves differently, just like we talked about, okay, if it gains its selfhood, uh, it's not the same. It's like your twin, so maybe it's twincest, huh? But not self-cessed. I came up with a robot Omegaverse idea to people to post that somewhere. I want to mention it because people wrote about it. There is a chat for Robot Fuckers Anonymous and a chat for Omegaverse, so you can share that there if you want to.
Yeah, yeah, you can
Okay.
probably find the meetups. Yeah, we can do like one question and then end it if you find it, or we can go about ending this however you feel like. Uh,
Unless, yeah, if there's one more question, you can ask. If not, that would be the end. Why are you so cool? Am I cool though? I don't feel so. I don't feel that way. But thank you for that. My voice. Oh, thank you. I was kind of worried because I'm not actually from an English-speaking country, so I was worried my accent from my country will be visible or heard more like. But thank you for that.
okay. I
You could.
think we can go about ending this. Thank you
I
very
think so
much for the
too.
panel. I
Thank you for having me
Yeah,
here
no
and
problem.
helping me.
Yeah. Robot fucking is always cool, so I'll always be glad that people talk about fucking robots.
By the way, guys, if you want to, you can hit me up on Twitter too. We can talk, collaborate, and continue some other discussions. The link is in the credit as well. So yeah, see you next year or on
Uh,
other activities.
yeah, thank you for everyone to coming, and please enjoy the rest of CitrusCon.
Bye.